Coming up on the show today, just 6 days from the start of training camp now, Clinton Bonner, one of the hosts of the great SeaHawkers podcast, joins me to talk about his fan origins, how an East Coast kid becomes a Seahawk fan, and specifically how much yesterday's throwback uniform unveiling represents that love. We dive into players to watch this preseason, his thoughts on Geno Smith as he enters year 2 as the Seahawks starter, and should Geno be featured on the next season of Netflix series Quarterback? Hit that like button and subscribe to the show. Let's get into it. This is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Welcome back, everybody. I told you it was going to happen, and it's happening. Co-host from the SeaHawkers pod, Clinton Bonner, finally showing up on the show, joining me here. Clinton, welcome to the show. First of all, you and I have been talking about this for a while. We're finally making it happen.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Great time for it to happen, right? We're about to get to training camp's about to open. We had some fun news yesterday. Hey, we're entering what I think is this is going to be a fun season. There is a lot of activity, a lot of action, a lot of buzz around this team. It's good times. It's good times.
And for those of us who do what you and I do, and your co-host Brandon and all those in the Seahawks podcasting community, this is the time it gets fun. It's just easier to think of stuff to talk about. You know, some of the stories write themselves. And we're going to talk about some of those today. But before we do that, I want to do this. I want to introduce you properly because it's first time on my show. I would imagine there's some carryover in our viewership and listenership because of the former link to field goals and where kind of the genesis of both of those podcasts. And it was actually Brandon who reached out to me and presented me with the opportunity to take the mic at field goals before Vox Media got rid of all the podcasts there.
Yeah.
Tell me this. So if people can't tell just by listening to you, you're an East Coast guy.
True.
Right? Long Island, you just told me. How does a kid from the East Coast and from New York specifically grow up and become a Seahawk fan?
Yeah. So it's a great topic because of what just dropped yesterday. I grew up in Queens. I was born in Queens, grew up in Long Island, a town called Deer Park. And I was probably 6 years old and I was starting to just watch NFL. My dad's a Giants fan and my mom was a Vikings fan, actually. And my brother was a Patriots fan and 5 years older. That's just weird. But that's the NFL. And I just loved, when I was 6 years old, I loved their helmet. I loved it. I liked the color scheme, the blue, the green, the silver. The helmet spoke to me. And at that point, my mom had to send away to Seattle, to somebody in Seattle, in order to get a catalog physically mailed back, in order to order something, in order to get something back. And I had like a 32, who I knew was John L. Williams, but the old meshy, no name on the back, 32 John L. jersey when I was probably like 7 or 8.
Giant number.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was that, man. I had the NFL huddle. I had the posters, I had the Blue Angel posters and away we go. And that's my love for the Seahawks started with design and marketing, basically.
So yesterday must have been an even cooler day for you than it was for most of the rest of us, because that's what attracted you to the team in the first place. So what was it like to see finally the team unveil that throwback classic era uniform yesterday?
They're gorgeous. They're sharp, right? They're beautiful. I love the energy and the buzz that the new team, the new players bring along with it. Like, they're ecstatic to wear them because they know they're dope. The piece for me is like, hey, the uniforms look great. The pants, immaculate. To get the silver, to get the helmet right. That to me was the best part. That silver, glowing silver helmet is like, man, you forget what you had. And it's been so long since we've seen them. And yes, we've seen the mock-ups and some people have done some awesome mocks over the years. But you see them in real life and you're like, these are gorgeous. So it's just total fun. And it's not even nostalgia. Nostalgia is kind of a different feeling. This was more just fired up. We're going to wear these. And I was so in on Tyler Lockett tweeting, hey, we need to petition to wear these week 1.
Yeah.
Because that was the vibe that was out there. It was like, why don't we just wear these? Because these are amazing. So how about you, man?
That's the thing that struck me is I think I was wrapped up in the nostalgia part of it. I was excited about them and I knew they would look cooler just because of the way uniforms are designed now, the tighter fit, no pads, that kind of thing. But it took me a second to wrap my head around why they looked even better. And then I read the John Boyle piece about all the work that went into this between Nike and the Seahawks front office and all the little decisions. And when they talked, I think it was Chuck Arnold was talking about how just the specific tint of silver, like you mentioned, in that helmet, when they came back with a mock-up of that from Nike, and they all went, okay, that's the one. Because I noticed a subtle difference in the royal blue in the jerseys too. It just seems a little brighter. It just seems to pop a little bit more. It's hard to put my finger on it, but I think they just look fantastic. Where do you lie on, there's a big segment of the fan base that says, these are so cool, let's just wear these all the time. Are you on that side of the fence, or would that kind of take away some of the appeal of just using them intermittently?
Yeah, the specialty, right? No, I think after seeing them, I think I could my heart could fall right in love with them again. Be like, wear them all the time. Wear them for a year or two and see what goes. And then, hey, on your rando Thursday night football game, break out the action green for the sake of the action green, right? That's fine, because people still like them. I like the action green with the navy blue. I still think it's sharp.
Yep. I'm on the side of action green too. I'm team action green. I know some people, it pisses some people.
Oh yeah, some people hate it, which is cool. Like you're doing something right when a lot of people hate it and a lot of people love it, or a lot of passion there. So no, I think I could buy all the way in and say these should be it. They're lovely.
Yeah, I keep going back to how I was taken aback yesterday by how much I loved them, because I like the current uniforms.
Me too.
I think they're cool, they're modern and sleek, and the guys look athletic in them and all that. But it just, man, I could easily say goodbye to those. And the one thing we are going to say goodbye to now is the Wolf Gray, and I'm not mad about that. Like there are people who love the Wolf Gray, and I just don't get it. It's basically dirty white. It's not any more different. It just looks like they didn't wash their away uniforms properly.
Yeah, not quite Rams, dirty sock, yellow white that they broke out recently, because those are horrid. And with that, a little bit of a dirty water, like dishwater gray, right? I'm okay with them going, man. It's like, there's only so much room on the island. Someone's got to go. Wolf Gray had to go for now, right? Maybe sometime down the line, they'll come back and they'll be or maybe not, Dan. That's okay too.
Again, I don't see the point. It's crazy. I talked for 25 minutes yesterday just about this one topic. You and I are still talking about it here in this first segment. It's people love this stuff, though. Did you happen to see the Indianapolis Colts alternates that came out?
I did. I just saw them, just floating around Twitter a little bit today.
Fired up about those, man.
They're all right. They're fine. I actually like the way they do in the Captain C with the Colt like infused in there. That's actually pretty cool. I'm not a fan of throwing black into a uniform for the sake of black in a uniform. Like Bobby for the last few years was like, he wanted the all blackout, Seahawks. And I was like, no, that's not the colors. There's so many other things we can do. So for the Colts to do that, I just don't think they're that nice. I've seen so many other, renditions or ideas on modernizing a Colts logo for what could be a third uni. And they're okay. I think those are very mid for me, very like C. I'd be like, meh, if I'm a Colts fan, but I'd probably be meh if I'm a Colts fan anyway, because it's the Colts.
I'm kind of on the other side of the coin. I don't think black ever looks bad on a football uniform. It's pretty hard to screw black up. It looks badass. My thing is the heathered blue. It looks like an Old Navy t-shirt. I have a whole closet full of heathered Old Navy t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now, actually. But just my thing is, if you're gonna go black, just commit.
Well, that part too, I could agree with that. Like, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly, right? So because you have the white, the horseshoe, right? So you could do something pretty cool to make the horseshoe really stand out against black. And of course it would, the white on black would be sharp, with a little bit of blue to kind of pop it out in some ways. So I feel that it just looked like they missed for me. I'm like, okay, you got a black helmet with these really blue uniforms. I'm like, Yeah, it's okay. We did it better, which I'm fired up about.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone has done it as well as the Seahawks did. Yes, and the way they rolled it out. I mean, I've watched that opening video with JSN about 10 times trying to pick out little different things. And
yeah, it was fun.
I think he woke up in my old bedroom.
We all had that blanket. That's for darn sure, right?
Except whatever character he was playing in that video was, family must have been doing okay because he had 2 computers.
He did. He had computers. He had the
Mac and a PC. I think.
That's it. Love it.
I want to do this before we move on and just talk Seahawks training camp. So you did something last week that was really, really cool. And actually it was kind of emotional for me. So you told me you were sending me something.
Yeah.
But you didn't tell me what it was going to be. And so I get this package in the mail. It's kind of a weird shape. And I thought, okay, it's a Seahawk photo or something, maybe an autograph photo you got or something that I could stick on the wall behind me, whatever. No, it was this. And for the YouTube folks, so 3 Kiss albums, old vinyl LPs show up in the mail. So I got Dressed to Kill here. Classic songs on this album, but is known notoriously for how poorly it was produced. And then this one's kind of funny because when Bob Condotta was on the show, and we were talking about Kiss about a month ago, because we discovered we were at the same concert in 1979.
I heard that.
The song that I pulled out is kind of my hidden gem and deep cut is a song on this album, Asylum. And then, of course, there's the classic Destroyer. And I think I will frame this one and put it on the wall just because it's one of the most classic rock albums of all time. How did that come about? I know they belong to your grandmother who recently passed. I'm sorry to hear that. But if you want to talk a little bit about her affinity with Kiss and why you thought to send those to me.
Yeah, so it was actually my mom. My mom passed, which it's all good. It's all good. Her name was Lorraine Intano, and she had a big rock collection. I mentioned her just before. She was a big Vikings fan, so loved football. Big Vikings fan. Suffered the way the modern day Bills fans have suffered, or really like our age Bills fans have suffered with all the Super Bowl losses. And she just has a great, really cool collection. And I don't have a record player. Right. So talking with my brother, I'm like, hey, do you want these? Like, nah, I don't have a record player. So I just kind of divvied some up between some folks I do know have had them and cleaned them up. And I had just listened to you recently and like, all right, I don't think I have another person who's going to appreciate these more than Dan. And we know each other through the Seahawks connection. That's great. Yep. So I figured I'd reach out to you. For me, it was more like I'm sending a batch to one of my good buddies who lives in Boca Raton, Florida. He goes by the name Johnny Parmesan. He's getting a stack. Yeah, he's getting a stack of them. He's a dude named Nolan, good dude, and he knew my mom very well. And I was like, hey man, it's just a way to keep the music playing. And I felt the same way. I was like, Dan's probably going to appreciate these the most, and they'll get used in some way that people get to enjoy them. So in a way that the music can get, could carry on. And that's what she loved, rock and roll, man. She was Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses was her favorite band. She just passed. She was 69. And she had seen GNR and Metallica, live at MSG, seen GNR, I think 3 or 4 times. She liked her rock. So please spin them, hang them, have fun with them. And may the music keep on rocking, dude.
Absolutely. It's an honor that you thought of me in that way and sent those to me. And it's cool. I'll just say one more thing about him. There's a couple of specific reasons that this meant so much to me. First of all, I used to have, growing up when I had a pretty extensive vinyl collection. I didn't take really good care of it. I look back and see that now, and that would have been a regret if I still had all that stuff. I didn't always put them back in the sleeve and they'd get scratched up or whatever. Yeah. But long story short, my ex-wife sold them all out from under my nose while I was sleeping one day after working at night.
Oh, no.
Because we were having a garage sale, and she sold my whole collection for $5. So all of my vinyl gone. It's one of the reasons that she's my ex-wife now. But the other more specific reason is that Destroyer album played a huge part in why I fell in love with that type of music, and still to this day love that kind of music, because my older sister, my parents, who were always terrible gift givers, and my dad listens to the show, and I've always been honest with him about this, so I'm not afraid that he'll be offended. They just didn't know what we wanted or liked. They bought my older sister that album for Christmas one year. She opens it up and immediately goes, I don't want this crap. And the album cover looked so cool that I said, I'll take it. And the rest is history. I just became a rock fan after that. So again, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. I love the origin story of how it became important to you. But that's awesome, dude.
Absolutely. Let's talk some Seahawks. We are 6 days away as we record this from the start of training camp at the VMAC. It feels like the longest offseason ever. Maybe because it was such an impactful draft and we spent so much time looking at it. You tend to focus more on the draft when you have high picks and multiple picks, and we all did that. And I think it just kind of prolonged the intensity of the offseason. So here we are finally. Let's do this. I sent you some questions to ponder. I want to break some things down and kind of ask you some things in a little bit different way than I've been talking with others on the show about. As you sit here today, who are you most looking forward to seeing in training camp in the preseason games? Pick maybe one on each side of the ball.
Yeah, there are several, right? And it's some battles too. It's quite interesting. And I've got a laundry list here, but if I have to go on one side of the ball, talking about defense, I really want, for me, linebackers and Vi Jones. Like what are we gonna see there? I think the talent showed out already. The dude can play. It's a extremely interesting group of linebackers at this point. And the front seven is so different from last year. So can a player like Jones show out and kind of get out of special teams fella and be like, no, this is somebody we could see routinely being woven into the front seven and having an impact this year. So that's somebody on defense I'm super interested in kind of keeping an eye
on. He really flashed last year in the preseason. There was one sack that he had in particular where he basically picked the guy up and threw him to the turf, and that kind of opened my eyes to who he was. I find it interesting that, you know, Pete's funny. When you listen to him long enough over the years as we have, you can kind of sense when he is paying lip service to a player and when he really likes someone. And he time and time again, you mentioned the word battle, and that third linebacker spot, interior linebacker spot, is huge in camp. It's basically at this point between he and John Radigan, and Pete has kind of gone out of his way to name drop both those guys without being asked about him. Radigan, who they like, and they keep coming back over and over again, or keep bringing back. And then Vi Jones, who has bulked up a little bit this year. I think Pete says he's at 235, and he's strictly an inside guy now instead of one who can play both. So, and he'll get plenty of reps because, you know, I just don't see Bobby playing a lot in the preseason. Devin Bush probably will play that spot, and those guys will get a lot of reps next to him. Yeah, I like that one. How about on offense?
Yeah, offense to me, we're going to see them, which is cool. Cause like you said, there's so many people that we're not going to see Draymond Jones, maybe a series. And I kind of hope no, like who cares? Like we know what the dude can do. We'll see it week one. But on offense, Olu versus Evan Brown, right? So seeing those two guys there, who will be our center? I'm very excited that I think either outcome, I think, is an improvement over the last several years of our center options. With that to me is going to be super intriguing, Dan. It's just, can Olu, 5th round pick, just keep doing what he's been doing for years on the collegiate level at the highest level and just be a solid center. And if he's not quite there yet, Evan Brown, to me, 2 years ago, was a darn good center for the Lions and is versatile. So he'll be on the team. Who will be our center? That battle, I think, is going to be really interesting to watch. And, you know, it's the preseason where we're not going to put all of our cards on the table in terms of our passing game, but you're going to do the things like run the ball, like, you know, traditional run the ball things, and who can move people better. Will it be Brown? Will it be Olu? And I think we'll be able to, by the end of the third week, probably have like a clear winner and know who our starting center is. And that's pretty exciting, man.
Agree. I just think that's a position they haven't put enough focus on in the last few years. And the fact that they went out this offseason and signed a guy who's proven, that has played there at a high level, and then still went out and drafted a guy who looks like a long-term NFL starter, kind of doubling down on that position. Because I felt like, you know, for all the people that are on the side of the argument that Geno didn't play well down the stretch last year and that's a concern, I would counter with, well, interior pressure was a huge issue the last 5 or 6 games.
Yep.
Teams really started to pick on Austin Blythe and that right guard combo, and it made life difficult for Geno. It was a tougher road. And so if we can shore that up, all the better for our quarterback. Let's talk about him next. Where do you sit in the Geno Smith world of what do you expect from him in year 2 after he shocked the world last year with his performance?
Yeah, and he did, right? He absolutely did. I was a bit of a Drew Lock stan last preseason. I just thought, for all the reasons, right? We don't even need to recount them. Right. I thought they were logical too, until I was week 1 where I was like, oh my gosh, like Geno's got it. He's and then week 2 against Atlanta. Just super, super impressed with his processing. My gosh, his processing was so good, even when things broke down, which happened quite a bit. I think there's a bit of a little bit of a revisionist history of how good or not, how good the offensive line was last year. And it was okay. And it could be a lot better. That's with 2 rookie tackles. Yeah. Back to Geno, I think his I'm not even going to say ceiling. I'm going to just say I think he's going to end up in the 4,400 to 4,500 yard range. So, last year, that's Seattle's record, right? He outguns Russ and all the let Russ cook for all those years, and he throws for more yards. I think he probably peaks at like 4,450, 4,475, and I think he can increase his touchdowns, which was great. 30 last year. I think he gets to probably like 33 with maybe a ceiling of like 35. There's reasons for that, and they're personnel reasons, and year 2 of Geno being like the man. But I think that's a realistic point. And if that's correct, you're looking at probably easily a top 7 quarterback, maybe even top 5, which is insane considering where he came from and what we're paying the dude.
Well, and I think if he does follow up on his performance from last year, and I think I'm a convert. I'm a Geno believer. I think the talent's real. When people say it was just 1 year, he's been sitting for 6 years. Why wasn't he good enough then? It just watch him play. Watch him play football. Watch him throw. Watch the way the ball comes out of his hands and the anticipation. And I keep going back to that throw to DK Metcalf in the back of the end zone at SoFi Stadium to beat the Rams on the road was a throw that I said it on the show. Not only aren't there many quarterbacks in the league that can make that throw, there aren't many quarterbacks in the league that would even see or attempt that throw. Like, he saw it. He manipulated his position in the pocket to kind of get that window against Jalen Ramsey and put the ball in the money. I think sky's the limit for him. And I don't think that completion percentage is going anywhere because they improved the interior offensive line, we all believe, and they improved his weapons. We got, adding JSN to that and 2 running backs that are really accomplished in the passing game, and McIntosh and Charbonnet. He completed just under it. It
was like 69.8. Yeah.
I think he hit 70 this year. I think he hit 70. Have you watched the Netflix quarterback show yet?
I have not. I getting texts about it, and a buddy of mine being like, Kirk Cousins actually is the nicest person on earth, and I haven't watched a lick of it yet, so I don't know it yet. But are you insinuating you want to have Geno on there next year? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. So, well, and I'll just follow up on your Kirk Cousins point. I've always liked Kirk. I always thought he was middle. I thought he was league average quarterback, 15th, 16th, that can win some games for you. Maybe he's Matt Hasselbeck to me. I love Matt Hasselbeck. The signed ball right there from Matt Hasselbeck and a bunch of jerseys in the closet. And I always used to have these fights with my dad who thought that Hasselbeck stunk. And I would always say, okay, find me 15 quarterbacks in the league you'd rather have. And he would name them off. And I'd say, okay, how are you going to get that guy? Right? Like, that's Kirk Cousins. But you come out of the show, he's not just a nice guy. He's a tough son of a bitch. He's really, really tough. I don't want to give too much away, but they highlight that. I'm only about halfway through it. But yeah, Peyton Manning, who executive produces the show, announced yesterday that they picked it up for season 2. And I just think if they were to follow Geno this year in year 2 with all the expectations, to follow up what he did and how important it is to this team potentially contending, it would be a lot of fun to watch.
I got to figure, like, if they don't, it's just a miss. You have a huge, the dude's a comeback player of the year last year. He has with this offense, a legitimate shot. And this is not being, straight homerism here, but has a legitimate shot with, if this team can do what they ought to do, or ceiling wise, even overperform a bit, then if he does those kind of numbers, he's in the MVP discussion all of a sudden, right? Not saying he wins it, but he's in the discussion. Right. So if the Manning brothers are not seriously, on the horn with Geno's agent already, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, and it may not come. It may not be his call. The Seahawks have always escaped the qualifications for Hard Knocks. But even if they had qualified, they're one of those organizations that just wouldn't want any part of it. I don't think they like giving people a peek behind the curtain of kind of their culture and how they do things. But maybe if it's just to focus on Geno after everything he's been through and everything that he's accomplished, maybe they would do that. It'd be kind of cool. Let's talk about expectations, because we have seen a real shift here in the last couple of months. From Seahawks were kind of the dark horse and the underrated team, the little engine that could last year. And they were a nice surprise. One of the nicer stories in the league because nobody saw it coming. Well, now there's an expectation. Now there's a buzz that's growing, and you're starting to see some of the preseason projections. God, Athlon's preseason guide even had them going to the Super Bowl and losing to the Chiefs. You're seeing some people starting to say the words. They've made up ground. They've made up ground on the 49ers. They have a chance to challenge them in the division. Is this team, as young as it is right now, are they ready to handle those expectations right out of the gate?
I mean, I think John Lynch said it, right? He came out and said they've made up. We're watching them now because it's an objects in the mirror are closer than they appear type thing. I think for the 49ers and the Niners right now, still who's playing quarterback? Will Purdy be ready? I think Purdy's actually a pretty darn good quarterback. I think he showed enough to me last year on a couple of specific plays. I was like, wow, that's a big boy throw you just made. Regardless if they say you have the arm or not, you made that throw, and it was accurate on the run, back of the end zone type stuff. So I think he's good. Does he have an elbow? We'll see about that, right? To answer the question though, man, like I think that I don't find the youth part worrisome for me with this team. The part that I think is difficult, really difficult, is I think this is a very hard schedule. I think this is a difficult. The Ravens are going to be good. The Bengals are good. The Cowboys are still good. The Giants went to the playoffs last year. The Lions basically went to the playoffs last year, right? And put us into the playoffs. Was certainly a deserving playoff team. This is, to me, is not an easy schedule. So I think we're going to win 10 plus games, but I think there's a pretty sincere ceiling that it's probably capping at 11. And if we win 12, go 12-5, then I think we probably take the division, which becomes very, very interesting. The youth part, I think culturally that Pete has set something up where, to some extent, it's almost like age be damned in some ways. Like if you're young and ready to rock and roll, he has proven that he will put you in and then allow you to sink or swim. And like a player, like a good example, man, like Kobe Bryant, to me, that was a mystery last year and still is a mystery to me. I don't kind of get it. It's like, okay, the dude played outside, of Sauce in Cincy, had a ton of volume his way using the boundary in Cincinnati, for the Bearcats. And then they're just like, oh, you know what? Go play slot in the NFL. Yeah. I'm still like sitting there raising my hand being like, why would we see the slot guy?
After they had brought Justin Coleman back.
Right. And he had a player like, I know Trey Brown was coming back from injury and I realized he's a corner, but shiftier, seemingly stickier. Like, so what's up with that battle? So there's some of these like idiosyncrasies that are super interesting that, they got me a little perplexed still, man. But no, I think overall, man, youth wise, I think that's to our advantage. I think young, fast, hungry, we will be all those things. And that's a good thing.
You talk about the strength of the schedule, the first 4 games before the bye, you mentioned a couple of them, the Giants, the Lions, but teams that I think when you compare roster to roster might be winnable, might be a strong word, but evenly matched, we might say. How important is it then, given everything you talked about and kind of that rough stretch in the middle of the season, for them to get off to a good start going into the bye?
Have to. It's first of all, the NFL is a very fast season, right? This baseball, it ain't. And I'm a big baseball, New York Mets fan, having a suffering season. I know you're a Mariners fan. It's almost Twin Cities in that way with some weird years going on.
To say the least.
Yeah, right. So, but starting with the Rams at home, have to win that game. We're a much better roster. They're well coached. They still got some weapons, but you have to win that game. One of the reprieves is that the division is not that good. The Cardinals aren't good, and the Rams may win 6 to 8 games, and then the Niners are still the Niners, and we'll battle them. Beyond that, at the bye, because they got Carolina, you got the Lions and the Giants, right? Those are the other 3 before the break, the early break. I think we really need to be 3-1, and I think we will be 3-1. I know you could pitch to 4-0 and make a claim for it, but I think that's being very dismissive of just how good and young and violent the Lions are.
Yeah.
And then the jump that don't sleep on Carolina. They ran all over us last year. They're going to come back to Lumen. And guess what they're going to try and probably do? I know they shook it up. I know it's different running backs now, but they're probably going to try and run the ball down our throats again. So we better know by week 2 versus the Lions what our front seven's all about. And I think we will know. We're going to see it, really, really fast, because the Lions offensive line, no joke. Panthers offensive line, run blocking, no joke. We'll get tested early.
Yeah, and that Giants defense too. That'll be a good test for the offense and all those weapons Geno has. It's crazy to think this far out, as we're already looking forward to week 1 at home against the Rams, that might be a must-win opener. But it really, really could be. That's a tough one if you drop it. Last year they had the advantage of the emotional edge with Russ coming home, and it was, Monday Night Football and all of that. All they're going to be hearing leading into week 1 this year is how down the Rams are. And, it's Donald Cup and Stafford and nobody else. And that'll be a true test right out of the gate, how mature this team is. Yeah. And how ready they are to potentially contend. One
of the funny things that I kind of always hear other Seahawks fans say is like, oh, we got to win that game by 14. Like, oh, we better blow this team out. And I'm always like, guys, I don't care if we win by 1. It's the NFL. Yes, I want to win big and I want to put teams away and all that jazz. And I want to, the Vegas says it should be -8. Sure, that'd be cool. It's I don't care. Win by 1. It's game 1. Get the W. Stay healthy and get the season off with the right momentum. Like that's it for a game, I guess, against a division rival where McVay has an entire offseason to look at our front 7 and go, all right, let's see what they're made of.
Couldn't agree more. Clinton, thanks for doing this, man. It was great to finally get it together. Time flies. We're already at the end of the show. Tell the people what you got going on and where they can find you on Twitter and where they can hear you on that other podcast that I like so much.
Of course. Thank you so much. So the SeaHawkers podcast, right? And by the way, you talked about earlier, like the overlap in Venn. And I do know that there is a large Venn between our audiences because I see the YouTube commenters. I'm like, oh, I know that person, which is cool, which is great. They're both really quality shows, in my opinion, across the board. So SeaHawkers podcast audio, youtube.com/SeaHawkers podcast. I'd say the cool thing, once the season gets going, we do 2 to 3 in the off season, and that's like Brandon and Adam, and we have others like Mr. Phil and Wilson Kahn. But then the season hits, and then we really kind of break it up into very segmented shows. We do a preview show, we do a live reaction show, we do the post game, we do a gambling show on Saturday mornings. That's just Seahawks talk about gambling for that game. So it's kind of like lots of different strokes for all the Seahawks folks, and it's a great place to check it out. So, and then on Twitter, @Clinton Bond for me, or @SeaHawkers Pod. Come say hi. Pretty much Twitter for me is retweeting "I think you should leave" memes and Seattle Seahawks football. Like that's my Twitter life.
Appreciate you coming on, and you're one of your other halves or one of your other parts. Brandon Schultz will be joining me on Monday, so you guys are going to want to tune in for that. Brandon and Dana O'Gorman will be jumping back on the mic, and we'll do our little training camp preview. Thank you again, Clinton, for everything and for being on the show today. You can follow me on Twitter @Seahawks Forever. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. Until next time, forever and always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks, man. Thanks.